Hi friends, thank you for taking time out of your week to spend a little with me. I appreciate you. This case I wanted to cover is a viewer suggestion, so thank you Rejected Driftwood 314 for reaching out and asking me to cover this case. So now I ask you all to join me as we remember Kris Kremers Lisanne Froon. Kris Kremers was born on August 9, 1992 in Amersfoort, Netherlands. Kris was one of 3 children to her parents, Hans and Roelly. By friends and family accounts, Kris was extroverted and spontaneous. She was passionate about the arts and very responsible. Kris completed her studies in cultural social education and planned to start studying art history after. While in school, she worked in psychiatry where she handled patients with addictions. After graduating from university, Kris found work at a cafe where she met Lisanne Froon. Lisanne Froon was born on September 24, 1991, also in Amersfoort. She was one of 2 children to her parents, Peter and Denny. Unlike Kris, Lisanne was described as shy. She was very optimistic, intelligent, and a passionate volleyball player. In September of 2013, Lisanne graduated with a degree in applied psychology. Shortly after meeting, Lisanne decided to rent a room in the same student housing dorm as Kris. The women became close and decided they wanted to travel. Kris had developed a love for South America as a child after a family trip to Peru, while Lisanne hadn't traveled further than Germany and was interested in seeing more of the world. So together, they decided to plan a 6-week trip to Panama as a graduation present for Lisanne. This trip wasn't just going to be a vacation, however. The women planned to sightsee and be tourists, but also planned to learn Spanish and volunteer half of their time at a children's school. For 6 months, they saved money and gathered toy donations for the children in Panama. Eventually, they'd earned enough. They hired a travel agency to help arrange the volunteer placements. On March 15, 2014, they landed in Panama where they first visited the coastlines. They spent 2 weeks in Bocas del Toro enjoying the beaches and culture of the area. They stayed in regular contact with their family through online communications. After 2 weeks on the coast, they ventured to Boquete, Panama on March 29th, where they stayed with a local family. Upon their arrival, the women learned their plans with the children's school had changed. The school director of Aura explained they could not work at the school that week, despite earlier arrangements being made. The women had received confirmation 3 days prior, but were still turned away by the director. They were understandably disappointed because even with meticulous planning, they did not accomplish their goal. But despite this hiccup, they decided to make the most of their free time. While at the host family house in Alto Boquete, the women planned a week of sightseeing. Miriam Guerrera, the host, explained the first night there the girls were restless, since they didn't have plans. Despite their Spanish not being great, Lisanne was able to keep conversation with her. Miriam claimed that at the time of their arrival, Lisanne reported not feeling well and coughed a lot. She also complained about a minor foot injury. Lisanne was asthmatic and needed an inhaler for her attacks. Based on these symptoms, she didn't believe the girls would have any major plans. But the following day, the women made it to the Dutch-run Spanish language school, where they used the computers to research the area and hire local tours to fill out their days. They'd planned several sightseeing tours starting on April 2nd until April 5th. They had nothing planned for that Tuesday, so instead they decided to take a hike on the Pianista Trail, which was a well-known path. The Pianista Trail is described as a 2.5-mile up and down path, with the summit reaching a height of 1,890 meters above sea level. It offered a stunning overlook of the rolling hills of the jungle. The morning of April 1st, the women posted on Facebook that they intended to walk around Boquete. They also texted Kris's boyfriend and Lisanne's mother to let them know of their plans for the day. The women hired a taxi to drive them to the start of the trail, which was about 9 kilometers from the host family's house. They dressed in light clothing, shorts and a tank top, and packed light as well. They had a backpack, some money, their phones, a camera, and a water bottle. This indicated they had planned to hike a short distance. Before hitting the trail, they stopped by a restaurant where the owners encouraged them to take a local dog with them named Azul. The women set off around 11 a.m. per the timestamp on the camera. The weather was great and they were in good spirits. But later that afternoon, Azul returned to the restaurant but was not accompanied by the women. The next day, April 2nd, the women missed an appointment they arranged with a local tour guide. The tour guide went to the host family's house to look for the girls, but they were nowhere to be found. Miriam claimed to have searched the area around her house the night before for the girls, but also found no sign of them. Giving them the benefit of doubt, Miriam decided to wait until the following morning for their return. She stated she was unaware the girls did not return home that night. Miriam got up, made breakfast, and left for work. With no sign of Kris or Lisanne, the tour guide, along with staff members from the language school, contacted the local authorities and the women's families to report them as missing. On April 3rd, authorities conducted an aerial search of the area around the trail and a ground search with the help of locals, but with no success. According to locals, hiking that trail should have taken the average person 2.5 to 3 hours to reach the summit, so in total 5 to 6 hours. The taxi driver, Leonardo Gonzalez, was interviewed since he was one of the last people to see them. He confirmed he picked the girls up around 1 p.m. and dropped them off shortly before 2 p.m. This time frame was confirmed by 2 other staff members of the language school, who reported they saw the girls leave shortly after 1 p.m. In addition to the cab driver, locals at the beginning of the trail were interviewed as well, who claimed to have warned the women to not walk up the trail by themselves, but were dismissed by them. Kris's father and boyfriend last heard from her around 2 p.m. on April 1st. After several days of unanswered messages, Kris and Lisanne's parents flew to Panama with Dutch detectives. For 10 days, the local police, canine units, and Dutch detectives searched the forest, but nothing was discovered. The families even offered a reward of $30,000, but still, no one came forward. For months, there were no new developments. On June 11th, a woman named Irma Atencio was on the bank of the river Culebra near the village of Alta Romero when she noticed something near a rice paddy. There, stuck between a rock and the river, was a blue lycra backpack. Irma contacted the police, and on June 13th, the backpack was retrieved and identified as belonging to Lisanne. The location where the backpack was discovered was at least 14 walking hours from the location where the girls were last seen. Upon retrieval, one thing investigators noted was how clean and dry the contents of the backpack were. The backpack itself was a bit damp, but nothing they'd expect from something exposed to the elements for months. Inside the backpack, they retrieved 2 pairs of sunglasses, $88 in cash, Lisanne's insurance card, a water bottle, Lisanne's Canon PowerShot SX270 digital camera, 2 bras, and both of their cell phones. Lisanne's inhaler was not among the belongings. A forensic analysis of the belongings showed a total of 34 different fingerprints with an additional 13 on the backpack. DNA was also collected on the contents, but none led to any serious leads. Other than some water in the battery compartment of the camera and slight swelling of the battery in Kris's iPhone, everything was dry and in seemingly perfect condition. The cell phones themselves and the memory cards showed no signs of water damage. Days after the discovery, investigators began the process of retrieving the data from all electronic devices. Here is the timeline investigators pieced together based on their cell phone records. On day 1 at around 4:39 p.m., Kris and Lisanne tried to call 112, the Dutch emergency number. Then, at 5:52 p.m., both of their phones were powered off. Day 2, both phones tried to call emergency numbers all day. Then at 1:50 p.m. and 4:19 p.m., Lisanne's phone was powered on. Day 5, at 10:50 p.m., Kris's phone was turned on. The lock screen PIN was entered. At 1:37 p.m., Kris's phone was turned on, but no PIN was entered. Day 6, at 10:26 a.m. and 2:35 p.m., Kris's phone powered on, and several unsuccessful attempts were made to unlock Kris's phone with the incorrect PIN. Days 7 to 10, no activity was found from either phone. Day 11, 10:51 a.m., Kris's phone turned on, but no PIN was entered. 11:56 a.m., Kris's phone powered on for 1 hour and 5 minutes. Only one managed to make contact, but the call broke up after 2 seconds. The call logs were strange, but nothing compared to the images retrieved from the camera. In total, there were 133 consecutive photos. The camera did not have a GPS option, so investigators could only guess the general location based on the surroundings visible. The first photo was taken from the morning of April 1st when the women left on the hike. It showed them on a trail near the Continental Divide, but nothing was suspicious. The rest of the photos from April 1st follow a similar pattern, including timestamps of when the hike started at 11 a.m. and when they reached El Mirador, the Outlook, at 1 p.m. The following pictures showed that instead of descending the same route and back to the beginning, they followed the path descending the other side of the hill. The last photo on April 1st, timestamped at 6:40 p.m., showed Kris in the rainforest with the sunset behind her. Some observers claimed her face was filled with anxiety. But then, on day 8, the camera revealed 99 strange photos taken with the flash on. Some of the pictures were seconds apart while others were 15 minutes apart, and several of the images looked deliberate and not blurred. Most of these photos showed the black sky while others showed a rock with a stick that appeared to have a red bag tied to it. A few showed that they were possibly near a river or a ravine. Then another showed the back of Kris's head, and another depicted a wound on her right temple. But the majority of the photos showed they were deep in the jungle and in near complete darkness. Another strange occurrence with the pictures is that one shot, image number 509, was mysteriously deleted. To this day, no one has seen this image. Its existence was only discovered after a deep dive into the memory on the camera's card. Dutch specialists have tried to recover the missing photo, but were unsuccessful, believing it was manually deleted on a computer, since no other deleted photos were discovered, and the memory card had plenty of space left for pictures. It is believed the missing image also coincided with the first call to emergency services. If the image were deleted any time before the first night photo was taken, then no one would have known, since the next photo taken would have automatically received the number 509. So this image was deleted after the camera was recovered. After the discovery of the backpack, a search was conducted of the area and nearby jungle. This discovery uncovered Kris's jean shorts on a rock on the opposite bank of the river, around 8 hours from Boquete. Some reports state they were zipped, folded, and placed where they were found. Then 2 months after the discovery of the shorts, closer to where the backpack was discovered, half of a pelvis bone and a boot with a foot inside were found. The wildebeest branded boot belonged to Lisanne. Her left foot was intact and showed multiple fractures of the metatarsals. The laces were still tight, and her sock was still on her foot. The pelvis bone was identified as belonging to Kris. Soon after this discovery, an additional 33 widely scattered bones were discovered along the Culebra riverbank, a few miles from the closest cable bridge and where investigators believed the nighttime photos were taken. All bones recovered were DNA matched to both Lisanne and Kris. Lisanne's bones looked as though they decomposed naturally, with some still having flesh attached, whereas Kris's were stark white and looked as if they were bleached. In contrast to Kris's clean bones, the pathologist also discovered that the bone marrow in Lisanne's femur and tibia recovered was not decomposed. Her bone marrow was still intact and unaltered. Then, on August 29, 2014, a piece of Lisanne's skin from her shin was found rolled into a ball. It was described as being in the early stages of decomposition. Pathologists speculated based on the state of the skin and bones that someone may have manipulated the piece of skin. The forensic anthropologist determined the cut of Lisanne's ankle bone was surprisingly clean. No blood was discovered on the specimens, and the bones themselves showed no signs of cutting, hacking, teeth, or claw marks. They also showed no signs of violent trauma. Very few other remnants were found, and additional pieces retrieved were sometimes miles apart, but all were following the direction of the river. It is alleged that only about 10% of Lisanne's remains were recovered and about 5% of Kris's. After the discovery of their remains, neither the Dutch nor Panamanian forensic teams could provide an official cause of death. Per the Panamanian authorities, they believed the women likely died from an accident. They believed they fell from a cable bridge and were washed away by the raging water, whereas the Dutch police concluded their deaths could have been a result of foul play, given the strange evidence. When forensic teams failed to come to a definitive and official conclusion, the case was considered an accident. They believed the women decided to continue into the wild terrain of the Continental Divide region and succumb to the jungle. Panamanian authorities and a team from the Rescue Foundation RHWW took into account the geographical and social conditions along with the technical facts that emerged from the forensic investigation and concluded that a violent crime was not likely the cause of their deaths. They believed the women likely slipped off of a cliff or a cable bridge in the area. The cliffs are described as being 30 to 40 meters high, so the risk of a fall is very plausible, and trying to scale these walls without proper equipment, combined with strong water currents at the bottom, seemed virtually impossible. They summarized it as a simple case of being lost and believed Kris likely fell, suffering an injury. Lisanne would have then needed to tend to Kris. They speculated the nighttime photos were either to light their way or document their last known location. At some point, Lisanne also became injured. With both women injured, they likely died from exhaustion, hunger, or the elements. After this announcement, the Panamanian government would release 2 other conclusions on the case, stating it was a homicide. Then, in October of 2014, forms from the state officials described their deaths as a result of abduction. The circumstances and aftermath of their disappearance have resulted in speculation on what really happened in those final days. And although there are many theories, no official cause of death has been established. Forensic pathologist Frank Vandergoot led the research team investigating the deaths for the Kremers family, and also determined violence or foul play was likely not the case. He was quoted as stating the women likely became disoriented or lost while hiking and fell. He claimed that for the trail you don't need a guide, and he didn't think they'd go on a cable bridge due to its dangerous nature. Romain Casada, one of the world's experts on the case, has attempted for over a decade to piece together exactly what happened. Romain has gone to their last location several times and located the spots Lisanne photographed. He believes that around 4:39 p.m. things went horribly wrong because the 112 calls started to come in. He thinks something happened but is unsure if they were just injured, lost, or someone was lurking behind. He felt the first call was significant because at the time, there were at least 2 hours of daylight. If they were uninjured, then they could have easily used phone lights to walk back the way they came. Or they could have spent the night on the trail and walked back in the morning. Per Romain, there is a 3-hour gap between their last tourist photo and the emergency call, so this suggested a change in mindset. He doesn't think they were attacked by animals since most in the area are nocturnal, and venomous snakes of most species can kill someone in 30 minutes, and this doesn't fit what is seen from the photos. Romain does feel injury is possible, but there were 2 people. One could have helped the other. But if this was the case, why weren't they still on the trail? How did they end up so deep in the jungle? Many speculated the women likely fell off the trail, but per Romain, he has climbed much steeper areas than the trail and felt it could have been climbed without equipment. He said the area has a lot of vegetation, but felt they would be able to get back up on the trail. And even if they did accidentally step off of it, the slopes would help guide hikers back on track. He also felt their clothing choice made it unlikely that they'd willingly venture that deep into the vegetation. Romain has also proposed that a human encounter was possible. During his expedition into the area around 2 p.m., near the first stream, he stated it was common to meet people. He felt it was strange that no one reported seeing them. He believes the frantic increase in calls was likely due to exhaustion, and the women being out of options. They had no food and were in the jungle for a week. They had to move around a lot, and the area is known for rough terrain, especially at the time of year they were visiting the country. When questioned about the nighttime photos, Romain believes 2 possibilities. They were either trying to signal their presence by activating the flash, or they were trying to use the flash itself as a light source. He leans more towards the first possibility since many of the photos were taken in rapid succession and are mostly pointed towards the sky. Romain added it was also a known fact the women were meticulous planners, and it was believed they had an interest in a nearby waterfall. So why not wait for the experienced guide if they wanted to venture more? To this day, no one knows what happened to Lisanne or Kris. Their deaths remain a harrowing mystery. Panamanian authorities have labeled it as an accident, whereas a Dutch private investigator is more convinced something sinister occurred. The official explanation filed was filled with inconsistencies, fueling suspicions, including the mystery photo, which many believed holds the key. In addition to this, the Panamanian authorities came under fire for mishandling the disappearance and the aftermath that followed. They also will not release the full autopsies or the majority of the nighttime photos to the women's family or Dutch authorities. No leads have been followed up on that were produced by their police force, including additional deaths and missing persons cases in the area. And they will not address the war on drugs and gangs that were hurting the area in 2014. Many believe the women were followed by someone, which forced them to venture further into the jungle, and for some reason, the government is hiding how much they really know about the case. In 2015, the only witness to last see the girls, the cab driver, Leonardo Gonzalez, died under mysterious circumstances. The mystery of Kris and Lisanne may never be solved, but their families deserve to know what happened fully. If you're interested in learning more about this case, I highly recommend the blog Cold Case, The Disappearance of Kris Kremers Lisanne Froon in Panama 2014 by Scarlett R. I will have that linked in the description in case you want to read further, because she continues to blog about this case and provide the most recent updates. Let's hope that one day both families will finally get answers. Hi friends, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I want to thank our friend Rejected Driftwood 314 for requesting me to cover Kris and Lisanne's case, and I can only hope that we will see this mystery solved one day. Leave your thoughts below so we can chat about this case, and if you found this to be informative, please consider giving the video a thumbs up to let YouTube know you want more from me. And lastly, if you're not subscribed yet, you should, because we would love to have you under the ash tree. Thank you again for stopping by. I appreciate all the love and support you show the channel, but we must part ways. I hope you have an amazing week ahead of you because you deserve it. So stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Bye friends!